Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dig into one of the most powerful revolutions in all of human history. But it's one that's so fundamental, it's practically invisible to us now.
So let me ask you a question. If I said, name the single greatest invention of the ancient world, what would you say? What pops into your head?
I bet you'd probably think of the big ones, right? The wheel, completely changed transport. Or writing, which let us record our own history. Maybe even the first great cities where civilization really kicked off. And yeah, those are all fantastic answers.
But what if I told you the most foundational invention, the one that made all the others possible, was something way less dramatic? Something so basic that we barely even notice it's there.
Yeah, we're talking about the invention that's underneath almost everything else. And it's this simple but totally revolutionary idea, standard measurement. So, what does that even mean, right? Well, it's just the decision as a whole society to agree that a certain length, a certain weight, or a certain amount of stuff is the same for everyone everywhere. This isn't just a friendly suggestion. Nope, it's a rule, and it's backed up by law. And that one simple agreement, it changed everything. To really get why this was such a game changer, you've got to imagine what life was like before it. I mean, we're talking about a world of just constant chaos and arguing. Okay, picture this. You're in a super busy market somewhere in ancient Mesopotamia, thousands of years ago. You want to buy some grain, maybe trade for some wool, and you need to hire a guy to build a wall. Simple enough, right? But there's a huge problem. I mean, how long is a foot? Well, it literally depends on whose foot you're using. And a builder's cubit, that's the length from his elbow to his fingertips, it might be way shorter than yours. So how in the world do you agree on a fair price for that wall? You can't. Or how about a handful of grain? The person selling it might just happen to have smaller hands than the person buying. Every single transaction for food or drink becomes this argument just waiting to happen. And weight? Oh, that was even worse. A merchant could totally use one set of official weight stones when he's buying from you, and then use another set when he's secretly shaved down when he's selling. In a world like that, trade is just slow, it's frustrating, and nobody trusts anybody. But then, in Mesopotamia, one of the very first cradles of civilization, they came up with an absolutely brilliant solution. They just decided to agree. And they tackled the problem with a system. For length, they standardized the cubit. That's a fixed length, which is absolutely essential if you want to build anything reliably. For weight, they came up with the shekel, which made trading in valuable stuff like silver way more predictable. And for, how much stuff fits in a container, they made standard jars for grain and oil. I mean, the very foundation of their entire economy. Now, this wasn't just some friendly suggestion, okay? These standards were created and, more importantly, enforced by the most powerful institutions around, the temples and the palaces. See, they were the big economic hubs, so they really needed reliable accounting, and they had the muscle to make sure everyone followed the rules. This whole system relied on one key person, the scribe. A scribe would take a measurement, carve it into a wet clay tablet, and just like that, it became an official, undeniable fact. It's fascinating because it shows you how writing and measurement really grew up together. They were the essential tools for the state to understand and to control its world. So once you have that foundation, that basic agreement, the effects just ripple outwards, and they start to transform absolutely everything. All of a sudden, markets get fairer, which is great for trade. The government can finally collect taxes accurately, and that's what funds the state. The whole economy becomes way more predictable. And maybe the biggest thing, rulers get way more control, and they can organize society on a scale that was just unimaginable before. Just think about what this makes possible. There's no way you can build a massive ziggurat or a huge sprawling city wall or a really complex irrigation system, not unless everyone is working from the exact same measurements. Standardization was basically the blueprint that made all that monumental engineering even possible. And get this practical need actually fueled massive intellectual breakthroughs. That famous base 60 number system from Mesopotamia, the reason we still have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour, that came about because scribes needed a powerful way to calculate with all these new standard units. The simple need to measure a field or count bricks, that directly led to the growth of mathematics itself. Wow. We so often think of history as this grand story of great kings and epic battles.
But something like this, it reminds you that behind all of that, there are the systems, these quiet, agreed upon rules that are actually what make a society function. And this really isn't just ancient history. The legacy of this one Mesopotamian invention, it's literally all around us every single day. I mean, the tools have changed, for sure. We've swapped their cubit rods and their official weight stones for laser-measured meter sticks and super-accurate digital scales. But the fundamental idea, it is exactly the same, a shared agreement on measurement that's enforced by some central authority. So why should you care about this? Well, because every single time you pump a gallon of gas or buy a pound of apples or even just follow a recipe that calls for a cup of flour, you are taking part in a system of trust. You trust that those measurements are accurate, and that trust, that's the direct legacy of an idea born thousands of years ago in Mesopotamia. So, in the end, maybe the wheel and writing weren't the most important inventions. Maybe the greatest innovations aren't things at all. Maybe they're systems, the ones that teach us how to cooperate and how to agree on a shared reality. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought to chew on. Measurement was one of the first great agreements. So what are the other invisible rules? The other unspoken systems that we all rely on every single day? The ones that are holding our modern civilization together?